excuse me, I'm going to do that again. Johanne Saltarelli and Eric Kingsley. Eric is the Director of Emergency Services for SunYouth, and he has I know, a part of a presentation for us. And the new executive director is Johanne. She's been executive director, I believe, since late fall last year, Johanne, if I'm not mistaken, more or less.
Actually, it's been a little longer than that. We had our old executive director who passed away now 3 years. So this is my 3rd year.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Very low key. I've been with the organization probably 65 years. No, kidding. For the last 40 at least. So
You actually, according to what I have here, you've been there for the last 46 years.
almost.
Johanne became involved with the SunYouth in 1975 through its sleepaway camp. And she could to quote her, in those early years, SunYouth had youth workers, and this job appealed to me instantly and fit in beautifully with my school hours. As the executive director of SunYouth, she's fully aware of the challenges ahead, particularly with the pandemic now. And as with all nonprofits, there's increasing competition for donors and staffing. And there's also SunYouth's plan of getting its own building within the next 3 to 5 years, something that Johanne likes to call their forever home. Kind of like picking up a stray pet. You need a forever home, absolutely. With that, I'm going to introduce Johanne and Eric. I will give you the board. You can share your screen at any time. Everybody, if you have any questions, simply put them into the chat box, and we'll make sure that they get asked at the end of the session. If you want to ask questions in person afterwards also, you can do that. So Johanne and Eric, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So first off, I'd like to thank you all for having us today. Mr. Stevens, who's still very much part of our organization, he was one of the co-founders, would also like to extend a thank you, because this is something he enjoyed immensely, was going out to meet the people around Montreal. And unfortunately, he has been one of the casualties kind of COVID, because he cannot come into the office. He's 80 years old. He does a lot of the work from home on his telephone, but not so much talent on a computer. So I just wanted to extend his thank you for inviting us today. We do have a little snippet that Eric's going to show, and it is pre-COVID. COVID has made a lot of changes to our organization, and not necessarily all in the negative. And then I'd just like to take a little time to explain why we need our forever home, because we thought we had one, and then we sort of got asked to leave. So I'll do that at the end. So without further ado, I think I'd like for Eric maybe to just present, and then if we can move on from there, that's okay. So I'll leave that with Eric.
Thank you so much, Johanne.
You're welcome.
So let's see if I can share a screen here. Let me know if this works.
Not your entire screen.
No, this one. SunYouth general presentation. So as Johanne mentioned, this presentation was made a couple of years ago. I'll see if I can.
And if we can't, then we'll just move on.
Go full screen.
You guys see that now, full screen?
There we go. Good.
Okay.
It's not the beginning.
I'll go back to the beginning. We'll start at the beginning, right?
And there we go.
So SunYouth organization, as Johanne said, founded in 1954. By kids, for kids, right? It was a group of teenagers. Sid Stevens was 13, Earl DeLecroix was 9, and they just wanted a place to be safe, to play sports. The first year that they raised money, they raised $500 by going door to door, renting the newspaper that they would write out by hand. So they would write out a newspaper, put as many names of kids in the neighborhood that were participating in activities, and then go to the parents and say, okay, for 2 cents, you can read my newspaper. They would wait for them to finish reading the newspaper and move on to the next house. So that first summer, they raised $500 to put towards the rental of a gym, because they didn't have a place to play basketball. Here's a picture of our founders, Sid and Earl. some 10,000 donors generously support SunYouth organization on a yearly basis. We receive monies from all levels of government, from private donors, corporate donors, and partners in the community. I'll talk to you a little about the two big services at SunYouth are the emergency services, which englobe like the food bank, the fire victim program, medication, clothing, all the services designed for people living in a poverty situation, going through a hard time. And the other main service is the sports and recreation, which is open to youth of all ages. So it's not necessary that you're coming from a poor family. It's open to everybody to have kind of a mix of kids from different backgrounds, and we don't let their financial situation get in their way of playing on the teams. So I'll present first the frontline emergency services of SunYouth. One of the more popular or more known programs is our food bank. So the food bank is designed to respond to emergency situations, allows families, individuals in the greater Montreal area to get food for free. Now, the people come on an emergency basis, they make an appointment, and right now, about 60% of our clients are being delivered to their house, which is a huge increase compared to home deliveries a year ago. So that's really due to COVID. Last March, we went to 100% deliveries for the months of March, April, May, and then in June. In July, we opened up again to have people start coming down to the center. Christmas was a mix of people coming to the center and getting deliveries, but there was more deliveries than people coming down. Then in Quebec, in January, we all remember we were pretty much closed down again, so it went back up to deliveries. Now we're opening it up again since mid-February. We started opening again. We also, the pandemic, makes us rethink the way we do things. We started a drive-through service as well out of the back of SunYouth. So now clients that are able to come down with a car, they do so. Christmas baskets at the end of every year, we do Christmas. Register between 4,000 and 5,000 families every year. The baskets include, fresh food, fresh produce, toys, hygiene products, all kinds of goodies for the kids. And like I said, a lot of them were delivered to the homes this year in comparison with previous years. We have a clothing bank at SunYouth, and I'll explain to you the clothing. We offer secondhand clothing at very affordable prices to families in and around Montreal. No appointment needed. And the sorting of the clothing is done by individuals with intellectual disability. So it's also like an insertion program. Now, COVID changed this drastically for us, the clothing bank. We did stop it for a while. And when we reopened the clothing bank, it's free clothing now. It's a lot of new clothing. We still have used clothing, but a lot of the new clothing is given to people that have no clothes. So you're probably wondering who has no clothes. We help out fire victims. We help out women that are fleeing conjugal violence, or men for that matter, although there may be less men than women. We also help out refugees that are newly arrived to the country and don't have clothing. Often they'll be missing winter clothing. And recently, in the last month of February and March, we've started helping out groups for homeless people living in Montreal. So then too, they have no clothes. We were first contacted by the Canadian Red Cross for the hospital that they opened up at le Centre Sportif sur Papineau, and they opened up like a field hospital for homeless people, COVID positive, that did not need to be hospitalized. So it was a place for them to be isolated, and everybody that went into that center needed new clothes, so we provided new clothes for those clients. We have a medication program at SunYouth. As you may or may not know, when you're covered by the Assurance Publique in Quebec, the RAMQ, you have a maximum amount per month of $92 to pay for medication. So after that, your medication costs nothing. The medication program is used by people living a poverty situation and needing medication, and sometimes it's a surprise. They're not regularly taking meds, and they have prescribed medication that they need to take, and they can't afford. So to avoid them of skipping their medication or of not eating because they're paying the medication, we pay in whatever pharmacy they're doing business in. So we have an arrangement with l'Association Québécoise des Pharmaciens Propriétaires. So all the pharmacies in Montreal know about our program, and we pay the meds for the client in their pharmacy. The Heating Assistance Program provides financial emergency assistance for people unable to pay electricity or heating bills. Admissibility, having tried to reach a payment arrangement with their service provider and having been in a precarious financial situation. So all these emergency services are for people living in a poverty situation. Hydro-Quebec services, they can't interrupt in the springtime. They're not allowed by law to interrupt during the winter, but when April comes around, they are allowed by law to cut people's service. Because Hydro-Quebec is a monopoly, they have an obligation to try and find an arrangement with their clients. It doesn't mean that the people will pay less, but it means that they can maybe put the payment over several months. Sometimes when the people are living in poorly insulated, cheaper rent or apartments, the hydro bills can skyrocket, right? And sometimes that's it. People are a little overwhelmed by the bills that come in December through March. Also, the normal way of billing for Hydro-Quebec is to bill 60 days at a time. Now, I don't know if you all receive your hydro bill 60 days, but you can also ask for it 30 days, which makes the bill obviously smaller. And in your restricted budget, the clients that we deal with, sometimes it's easier to pay. All that is to say that we are authorized to negotiate on the behalf of our clients with Hydro-Quebec. And we also have access to funds to pay for heating oil for clients who are responsible for their heating oil, but are not landlords, they're tenants, which there are fewer and fewer in Montreal. A lot of duplexes or triplexes have become electric. You know, the oil is not as popular as it was 20 years ago when I started with SunYouth, but the service still exists. So what we do is we contact the person's service provider, the oil company in question. We try and make an arrangement, and ultimately, if we need to pay, we pay. We also get sometimes free oil from l'Association Québécoise des Indépendants Pétroliers, so the AQIP. We have a program we call Children's Help Program, where we're in a bunch of different schools. Here it says 40 different schools, underprivileged schools in Montreal. I know we're up to 60. We distribute free school supplies in the month of August and free new clothing to kids going into school as well, kids and as well as their parents. We offer various indispensable items such as backpacks, notebooks, pencil cases, boots, coats. Hundreds of kids are geared up for the back to school. Last year, we gave over 1,000 bags just in August and another 1,000 at Christmas of school bags. So those collects that groups are doing for us are really more and more popular. People are contacting us at the beginning of summer and saying, hey, we want to collect school bags for you guys. What are you guys missing? Or can we make our own bags and you guys give them out? So yeah, like I said, 1,000 kids in the summer and 1,000 also at Christmas time. The Children's Help Program has agreements with the two big hospitals for children in Montreal, St. Justin's and Montreal Children's. It also has a protocol with youth protection. So we take referrals from those agencies and help the families. Often families from the hospitals will be living a poverty situation because of the sickness of a child. So this child becomes sick, the parents start missing work. Ultimately, you know, after 3 or 4 weeks, you know, they're let go or put on unemployment because they're not able to go into work, and they're still taking care of a kid that may or may not be hospitalized. So we help them with different bills. We help them with food. We help them with medication. We help them with clothing, all our regular services. But we can also help them, you know, pay the gas to get to the hospital. Or I think they're putting the questions into the chat. A child's illness can tip family into poverty, right? So that's what I was just going over. Assistance to disaster victims is really a lot of the disaster victims coming into that program are fire victims. So we work with the Canadian Red Cross in Quebec to systematically follow up with every residential fire in Montreal. It's a program that's supported by the City of Montreal, by the fire department, where we remain available to go to the scene of the fire to help families with, a lot of times it's transportation from the scene of the fire to a hotel where the Red Cross will pay, but we'll transport the people. A lot of the times it'll be food or snacks while they're being processed, or even I've brought to the scene of fire, pants, jackets, boots, shoes, for people that are, have been evacuated from their home in the middle of the night and not dressed for the weather. So we do that on a call basis. So the firefighters or the Red Cross will call us as needed, but systematically when we get to the office the next day, there are many residential fires in Montreal. Over the last year, I think it was like 184 fires. So when we come into the office, we see all the people that are affected by this fire, and we contact them one by one and meet them the day after the fire to give them bus tickets, to give them taxi coupons if they're mobilité réduite, if they're having trouble getting around. We'll even drive them ourselves if it's a person in a fragile situation. I'm thinking of, it could be a senior that uses a walker. We'll transport them to help them get to the offices, the government offices, to do the paperwork that they need to do to find a new home in the coming days. Disaster victims are also flood victims. That when there are floods I'm thinking Pierrefonds, because that was where we did our interventions in 2017. Victims of flood, we offer the same services as for the fire victims. So giving them grocery gift certificates to be able to feed themselves in the transition period, giving them Jean Coutu gift certificates so they can get hygiene products, and like I said, transporting them around as well. One of our fun activities that you guys probably heard about this winter is the bicycle distribution. So this is to reward youth that have done something special, something exceptional, something heroic in their community. It's been made possible since 1984, thanks to Mr. Avi Morrow, who remained anonymous until his passing in January 2019. He was giving under the pseudonym Bike Man. It's aimed at children ages 13 to 17 from the greater Montreal region, and it's awarded to youngsters whose actions have had a positive impact on their community. So that have shown exceptional courage or difficult situations. Here it says 2018, there was 83 deserving youths rewarded with a new bike, safety helmet, and a lock. I saw the activity report on our website. Last year was 103 kids received bikes, helmets, and locks. The sports and recreation. So like I said, there was two big services, emergency and sports and recreation. So sports and recreation was the founding principle of SunYouth in 1954. The idea is to give underprivileged Montrealers a chance to take part in sports and recreation activities, promote healthy lifestyle, and school perseverance is a big thing for us. It strives to promote physical, social, intellectual development of young people. In our sports and rec last year, over 600 youngsters took, well, that was not last year's program, but when this slide was made, but the numbers are similar from year to year. Day camp is addressed to 5 to 12-year-olds with activities that are both fun and instructive. We have different sport teams that I'll go into in the coming slides, from 7 to 17-year-olds, providing them with alternative channels for their energy in a positive way while supporting their school. So the sports teams are also supported with tutors that we have, coaches that we have to help them, because education is very important to the sports aspect of what we do. And there's also a seniors club where we find older people a place that they can be entertained by different activities that help maintain their independence. So we had a Tai Chi club, There was a bingo club. I know they used to go on day trips. So those are for our seniors.
I'm just going to interject before Eric goes into the next slide when he says that the organization was founded because of sports, and the intention of the sports was at that time to keep the kids occupied and off the street. As we were able to bring in more funds, the objective was that schooling would be the end all be all. It would allow the kids to stay in school and to have better opportunities. When Sid and Earl decided that this was the challenge we were going to focus towards, the teams were not only competitive, but the competition had to be where the kids bought into the fact that schooling was the ultimate end result. So what we did over the years was we created a gigantic board that was our alumni board. And we've had quite a few alumni go on to play professional sports, but the intent was not that. What we had on those boards was all of our athletes who went on to the different universities in CEGEP, because that was the goal that we were really trying to enforce with the kids, that although the sport is great, the sport, you're not all going to play for the NFL, or you're not all going to play for the NHL. It's really about a ways or a means to an end. And that end was continuing school and being productive and being able to get out of the sort of poverty that they were faced with. The other thing I'd like to clarify is that we don't just allow kids who come from a lesser financial background. I think that that's one of the misconceptions that people have for our sports program. Our recreation program is almost the same, but our objective is that all children should be allowed to play sports, to have a recreation activities. What differentiates us is that we pay the tab for the kids who can. Not necessarily just for low income. When we do the fundraisers, obviously, it's to support or supplement those costs that the lower income families cannot prevent themselves. So I'm sending it back to you.
Very good point, Joanne. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
So keep in mind when I'm talking about all these sports teams, right? If we're saying we have, I don't know how many, five football teams, that all those football teams have coaches. Many coaches go around those teams. So when we get to the part about volunteers, you're going to see how many volunteers in a year help SunYouth. So football with 5 teams have a multitude of coaches. Basketball, I think we had 7 teams last year. Here we have boys and girls, like it says, teams compete AAA, provincial, civil leagues, such as the Montreal Basketball League. All activities take place after school and on weekends, academic success being more important for us than the sport itself, right? Sports development programs, we have SLAP hockey, which we don't call SLAP anymore, but we just call SunYouth hockey. We have the PALS baseball. I won't go into details about we're starting to miss time, the basketball camp.
Yeah, so I'm going to just stop Eric again, simply because I've been involved with the sports for so long. I would just like you to know that the last 2 programs that he just showed you are integration programs.
Yes.
So the reason that we chose to use those as integration programs was because we wanted to get the newly arrived people to our city to sort of integrate them in what our culture was. And we thought that the best way to do that was through their children. And so we created introductory programs, like the hockey is very much an introduction program. And we have different, we have different committees on the actual hockey. Hockey is really huge, and they have different committees everywhere. So once our kids learn about hockey, we have those established connections with wherever they're from, that if they want to continue, there's a respite of the big hockey fees for a couple of years until the parents and that organization can find ways to keep the child playing. But our input is that they come on, the parents learn a little bit more about our culture, and the kids get introduced to those 2 sports.
Yes, and I know I was talking to our sports and recreation director. He also has added art program, and they're looking to do coding as well sometime this year. So integration programs very important in getting the kids active, whether it's through sports or whether it's through art or coding or different activities. It's the important thing is to get them active. Like Johanne mentioned earlier, this is our wall of fame that for the athletes that have gone on to higher education. It can also be found online on our website now. A little bit more about day camp. About 100 kids each summer that come down to the SunYouth. They get to visit the garden. They go on day trips. We have integrated our crime prevention services under the sports and recreation programs. The programs still exist, such as the bike patrol, created in 1984 to promote safety, prevent infractions, increasing the sense of security in community. They work very closely with Montreal police. Their summer jobs, usually 10 weeks, and we have about 30 patrollers in 15 different sectors of Montreal. So you may see our bike patrol this year. And their objective is always to kind of be like a go-between between the police and the community. So feel free to approach them and congratulate them on what a good job they're doing. We have a reward program, which always gets a lot of questions, and maybe we'll see at the end of this presentation if we have questions on rewards. It's important to know that when we use a reward, and people donate specifically for the reward, so it's not like we're taking money from the food bank or from the kids' football teams to pay rewards. It's always coming from a donor or donors that want to give specifically to this program, and it's always being used by the police. So we never push the police, hey, I think you should use a reward in this case or that case. It's a tool that exists. We have these funds. They're in secure. They're aside, right?
Yeah, it's not part of our budget.
It's not part of our budget, and the police ask us, say, SunYouth, can you help us with a reward? We need $10,000 or $20,000 for this reward, because we've used all of these techniques, and now we're at the point where we need to use a reward because it's usually one of the last things they want to use. We have partnerships with Montreal Police, Laval, Longueuil, the SQ, and even Ontario Provincial Police. Rewards are useful in about 33% of all postings. When we offer a reward, it usually succeeds in about 33%. Another good program, Good Samaritan, where we reward people that have done good, often heroic acts in their communities. So pay attention to the news, because I know Johanne and Tony, our sports director, are giving out a Good Samaritan award tomorrow. And I'll let you guys know it's in Park X. Assistance to crime victims, also very important to help people that are victims of crime. So the services we give them resemble a lot of what we give to the other victims, fire victims. It's to help people before they can qualify for IVAC with material assistance, clothing, food, medication. And our volunteers. Volunteers, we couldn't do half of what we do without these volunteers. Are essential to the organization. Over 1,500 volunteers support us on an annual basis. 1,500, contributing over 143,000 man hours, which represents 69 full-time positions at 40 hours a week. That's incredible. 69 full-time positions. Some of them are social integration, rehabilitation programs, collaboration with different centers for people that are mentally challenged. Internships opportunities are also counted in the volunteers for social work students, delinquency intervention students. We've had pharmaceutical stage come to SunYouth. We've had a doctor stage with the McGill University CHAP program come to SunYouth. So volunteers are a big part of what we do. And our donors. So thank you to the numerous private donors and companies, foundations. Percentage of government funding received is approximately 9%. On an annual basis, SunYouth has over 9,000 monetary donations for which it produces tax receipts, and an annual budget of $7.8 million.
That's it.
Please visit our website and social media. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and all that. This is a picture of our old building that we lost. And now Joanne's going to talk to you about the future for SunYouth.
So we hope we didn't bore you with our presentation. Was that okay? Maybe we can do the question and answer. Oh boy, I can't see that. Can you read that?
Do you want to do the questions now?
There was one that said, let us know if you need face mask and hand sanitizer. Absolutely. Thank you very much. If we could maybe contact us afterwards. We have been giving out masks since Christmas, but we need every month, and hand sanitizer right now we don't have for our clients. For the clients, we don't have.
We'll have somebody get in touch with you in the next couple of days.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Are we accepting used bikes? It's not something that we're looking for.
Because of COVID. Also, we didn't use that before, but COVID has restrained us so much, and just so many things that we do because we don't have the manpower, the volunteers to clean everything down. It's not possible. The same with our clothing. People will be able to drop off to us. Now it has to go in a bin so that bin goes to the warehouse. Like, so much has changed in the last year. And used bikes is one of those things too. We've tried to stay away from that, simply because we don't have the volunteers right now that we used to have before because of all the government restrictions.
Sri, I believe you have a question.
No, they're fine.
Yeah, I have a question. My question came up partway through your presentation, but I think to some extent it has been answered. Yet I have a question. You do so many things, and the biggest challenge you will face, I can imagine, is the logistics of doing this and the manpower to do this. How do you execute these two? I can't imagine.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, you have.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. You have explained about the volunteers, but I'm saying, you still need a lot of people full-time working for it. So I'm wondering, how do you manage that, and how many people you have dedicated full-time?
So what we did when COVID hit us at the first, because prior to COVID, our volunteers, our 1,500 volunteers, as well as the integration groups that we have, really helped us achieve that. On the other hand, COVID brought a whole other aspect to what we do. Most of the times people come to us and then we give them the food here. COVID changed all that. We had to go and deliver. So all of the groups that would normally come to SunYouth to help us make the bags and all that ended up being our drivers during Christmas. So instead of them coming to make bags, they delivered the bags to us. So we kind of had Christmas down pat. What was happening was our day-to-day activity. So when COVID hit, there was no more sports and recreation. So all of the sports and recreation staff became the staff that helped us with emergency services, which is really the reason why today I brought Eric along, because the change that occurred more than anything was really in our food program, because we couldn't stop our food program. We didn't want to stop to help the people less fortunate. So it was all about making those adaptations for a population of the society that was already suffering prior to COVID and much more after. So we readjusted everybody, all of the tasks people did, and were able to bring it together so that each and every one of us had different tasks, but that addressed the issues that we were facing. So like I said, in regards prior to COVID, people would drop off their clothing and all that. Well, that group no longer did that, right? So they ended up making food baskets for us. So we just really revamped what we were doing prior to COVID. What's our next step is, now that sports will be coming back, we're going to open for some people to come back to SunYouth. So that's how we've adjusted everything that we've done. And I must say, our staff has had to put in more hours because a lot of our volunteers were already retirees. And when the government came up with their protocols, just like Sid, who's our co-founder, well, they couldn't come into our building. So we're hoping that as soon as everybody gets their shots or their vaccine, that they will be able to come, because they're itching to come back to work. It's a social venue for them. They're part of our team, and they're really finding that difficult. But to answer your question, that's really what we did. We took staff who were doing other things and integrated them into our food program, and every one of us took on extra tasks, right? Because we're a nonprofit and a frontline worker, so you do what you have to do. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
There's another one in the chat. How many people percentage-wise would represent disabled volunteers from programs such as CROM, etc.? We said we had 1,500 volunteers. I would say maybe 30 people, so it would be like 2%.
A little more.
2 to 3%.
I have a comment to make. My name is Nadia Chidian. I'm very proud to say that back in 1957, I was a member of the Clark Street Sun,
No.
which became SunYouth.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that's amazing.
Can we get in touch with you? We're doing
Sure, absolutely.
We would love.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I knew
absolutely.
Earl de la Perelle very well, and Sid Stevens also.
Right.
They lived a few doors away from me.
So when Earl
I met my
passed
husband
away,
there, and we have a whole group of people that we know, yes, for sure.
I would love to get in touch with you, because when Earl became ill, one of the things
Yes.
we wanted for him to do was to give us the stories, right? Because with Earl and Sid have the story. I only have
Right.
41 years of stories, but they had many more before me. And we were trying to do that, and unfortunately, it was very quick. He was well one day and then not well. So Sid has actually taken that, and we're kind of forcing him to make sure he tells his story. So it would be great to meet with
Yes.
you, to have some.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be wonderful.
So another thing I wanted to say is when I was president of our club back in 1993, I had invited Sid to our club, and we also brought up 100 kids up to the camp. That was one of our projects.
So I was at the camp. So I was a
Yes.
camp director for many years. It was,
Yes.
it was so much fun. I got to meet super interesting people. All of our, I think our whole journey with SunYouth is exactly that, right? It's meeting amazing people from all walks of life. Some who
Right.
need to give at this point, some who need to get, but then they all come back to give. So I
Absolutely.
think our strength, and I try and tell this, and I truly believe that, is that SunYouth is just a middleman. We get
yeah.
and we give, and
Mhm.
that's really our role. And we take that role very seriously to be able to help Montrealers that are in need, because those same people come back and help us, whether they're volunteering, whether they donate. So it's a huge community of people who need it at that particular point.
Right.
The other thing I don't think that we addressed very well in the presentation you just saw, and I think a lot of people are not really sure of that. So SunYouth in the French sector is known as a food bank, and then in the English sector is really known as a sports. We are one organization, Jeunesse au Soleil SunYouth. Les enjeux, like the French say, is always that, right? Is trying to make sure people understand we're the same organization, and that's not always an easy task. But I think what's more important than all of that is that we're a regional organization. So the people who come to use our food banks are not from around the corner. What happens with us is there are many food banks all over the city, and they only have space for X amount of people. So SunYouth is here to make sure that people who need get it until they're able to go to the space that's closest to them. So Eric works very closely with many food banks. They'll say, we've reached our quota of what we have. Can you take more people? And that's really our role, is to be an emergency service for people. So some people will last with us 3 months, a year, but they'll never be long term, except for our seniors. Our seniors is very important that we keep the same seniors. Once they become part of our group, we'll take care of them right up until they don't need us anymore, because it's too complicated, and we bring them the food. So, we're able to still keep doing that for them. So that's just a little bit of a misconception that people weren't always sure about. So we're not really just for the community that we're in. So which leads me to when we were looking for our new building, that had to be an important, it was one of the key reasons why we bought where we bought, because it had to be accessible from people coming from all over the island. So there had to be a metro and there had to be a bus service that was easy for people to embark to come to SunYouth, because some of the folks come from quite far and it takes them an hour and a half to get here. So those are all the things we discussed before we were able to find this locale. Now, the reason we say we want a new home is because we were at Barron Bing since 1981. We've been there a long time. And then we found out through the media that the school board was going to take back their building, even though we had been in the process of negotiating with them to maybe buy this building, because we got the feeling that the school board was going to start getting rid of their buildings. So Barron Bing used to belong to the English school board. And then when there was all the amalgamation, it ended up becoming part of the CSDM. But we were already there. So we went from the English school board to the CSDM, who became the owners of the building. Now, the city of Montreal has always paid our rent. That they are probably our biggest donor. They have paid the rent for that building for us. So they too, they hadn't heard anything. So it was a client of ours who called to tell us, we just heard that they're taking back your school. So we were a little bit surprised, not to say the least. We called the city, and then the city went out and dug, and the truth was yes. And not only were we going to move, we had like 8 months that we had to leave. We occupied a rather large space, so there was no way that we can find any space that would accommodate us all, especially the gym. So needless to say, we're living in very many different areas. We have some group, we were on Laval Street, we have some folks that are at the warehouse, and then we have our basketball teams. We were finally, after a year of trying, we were able to find a school, La Pensionnat de Sainte-Anne, who was willing to rent us their gym because there's no gym availabilities. So the new building that we need to move into needs to have a gym, because that's the core of all of our recreation program with the kids. And so that was a necessity for us. So we found a building, and we're in the process of getting everything together so that we can start a capital campaign. And the building that we bought is across the street from Jarry Park, which would allow us the use of the park as well as being able to have close proximity to the metro. It's a block away. The buses are all there. Our kids are all over Montreal, so it's kind of in the center. So this is our new project, and I know we don't have much time, and I would love to go over this project, but I just wanted you to understand where we're at today, and what we're hoping to do is to bring back all of our programs back together, and we're trying very hard. We've not missed any of our programs yet. We've still been on top of everything, but it's been very difficult, and it's really hard because from year to year we have to book that gym, and we're not necessarily sure.
Well, thank you, Joanne, and thank you, Eric. There's a hell of a lot going on down there, I'll tell you, and we're delighted to hear about it. David Franklin, would you care to present our thank you to these fine people?
Eric and Joanne, the name of your organization, SunYouth, is perfect. Sun is the giver of life, and youth is the hope of the future. The fact that you've existed for 65 years shows the invaluable contribution you've made to the Montreal community. The fact that 1,600 people devote their time to your organization is a credit to your organization. You revealed to us the many, many activities that we were really quite unaware. When we read about SunYouth in the newspaper, now we will realize what an invaluable contribution to make to Montreal, a unique organization. We congratulate you, and we hope that Rotary will support. Our mantra, Rotary, is service before self. Your mantra could be service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's very generous. Thank you.